think it just goes live. So, all right. Well, we have another week of popping in the local business lounge with a phenomenal guest. And this is Karla Rendall. And I've known Karla since probably 2018 with Fem City stuff. I think that's how we originally met. We'd probably have to like look back, but that sounds logical. But I invited Karla to be in this group today because she has a wealth of knowledge when it comes to insurance. And insurance isn't like the sexy conversation most people want to have, but it's so important. And I remember when I was initially talking to Karla about what she does and why she cares about it, like she gets excited about the education part of insurance. And I think for someone like me who's like, I don't, what is this? Like coming at it from a place of education and empowerment, like I knew she was the right person to bring into this community to introduce people who are maybe like just getting started or expanding and really needing to think through ways of getting the right insurance to protect themselves and their business here in the same conversation with Karla. So Karla has been doing this now for 4.5 years. That's what you said in your bio, right?
Crazy.
Yeah. But your background, you were in corporate America, right? For quite some time, 17 years, I think you said in banking,
Yes.
and you left it the world to start this insurance agency, which is so bold and courageous to like go out on your own. So, but what you say is like you love being an entrepreneur and you have like I love that you listed out all your passions of like what you like to do. I like reading, I like learning, I like volunteering. She's like, Carla's just like this happy-go-lucky gal who's like so involved in the community, making such a difference even beyond insurance, which is super beneficial to people. So I'm gonna let Karla take it from here and introduce herself in her own words. But Karla, I'm so happy you're here today.
Yes. Well, thank you for asking me. I'm excited to do these. And I love to collaborate with you any chance I get. Again, as Emily said, my name is Karla Rendall, and I am a lot of things. I am a wife of 14 years. I am a mother of two boys, Cole and Connor. They keep me busy. We have currently two dogs. I tend to rescue animals and then ask my husband for permission after they're home. But right now we're at two, and we're going to try to keep it that way for a while. And then Urbandale, we've been in Urbandale since 2007. I think we've moved houses a couple times, but Metro since 99. When I graduated from UNI, I had my degree. I received my BA in education in 99, which kind of dates me, but it's true. Go Panthers. Also a huge Hawkeye fan. I actually kind of grew up a Hawkeye fan, and I've always been a Hawkeye fan. So I cheer for both UNI and Iowa. I mean, I have a lot of loves in life. I enjoy running. I'm slow and steady, but I enjoy the thrill of getting out with my dog Lily and running, and exercising. It's just such a feel good and stress reliever for me. It's my time alone, the only time I get. As a mom, you understand that, I'm sure.
Yeah, I get it. I'm learning.
A minute here, 2 minutes there.
Yep.
Yeah, I love to read. I love self-development books, and I also love suspense thrillers. I love the scary stuff. So Halloween's my favorite holiday. Everybody that knows me knows that. I love Halloween too much, probably, but yes, I look forward to every fall. Let's see what else. I've had my agency for 4.5 years. Before that, like you said, 17 years in banking. But even in high school, I wrote a paper about being an entrepreneur, and it runs in my family. And I think I always wanted it, and I was afraid to do it. So for those of you that are just diving in or thinking about it, my only regret is not doing it sooner. I wish I'd done it a long time ago. I missed out on a lot of things with my family, and it is scary. And I was terrified. Believe me, I'm not lying. It's not all peaches and roses, but it was worth every minute of sacrifice. And to this day, the benefits outweigh the disadvantages by a long shot. So worth it.
So how did you choose to go from banking to insurance?
It was kind of a process. I spent about a year trying to figure out what widget I wanted to sell or what I wanted to do with my business. And I had a lot of ideas, but what kind of kept playing in the back of my mind is insurance. And I think part of it was I had a friend in the insurance industry who said, you should do this. It makes sense. It's an easy transition from financial world.
Sure.
The other piece was I already had some of my licenses in the state of Iowa for life and health. And so it just seemed like a smoother transition. It made sense to me. It's still in the financial realm.
Yep.
So that was kind of how I determined to go that route.
Oh, I love it. And like, tell us like how did you initially start building your clientele? Anything you did that you felt like, oh my gosh, this is what I would suggest anyone in kind of the service-based industry like dive into?
Mhm. Well, I would like to say I didn't do this, but I did target my family first. I tease them all the time. They were my first victims, and they were
Ah,
good practice. I even told them, you don't need to switch me. I just want to practice
perfect.
and figure it out.
Yeah.
And I had a list of people that I wanted to reach out to, but I also spent a lot of time networking and being on social media and finding ways to get involved in the communities to get my name out there. So it was a really
Mhm.
a bundle of things that I did.
Yep. Just kind of went all in, just like, got to get the name out. I love it. That's
Yes.
awesome. So I brought you on today to talk insurance, and I love chatting about your story, but I want to dive into some of the things that you feel like local business owners should know when it comes to protecting themselves, protecting their business, all the spaces in between. Because, like I said, I have learned so much from you, even just in a brief conversation I remember having down in the village with Whitney, which was probably like 2 or 3 years ago at this point. Oh my gosh, wild. So you work with like retail, brick and mortar types of brands, like restaurants, service providers, and provide them protection for themselves. But like, what does that mean when it comes to insurance?
Well, I think the biggest thing that as a business owner, you you know you need coverage, and a lot of times if you lease a space, you're forced to have it anyway. Not that you wouldn't already want it, but where I come in is to determine what are your potential risks and
Mhm.
what are the proper coverages to protect against those risks.
Sure.
There's nothing worse than having gaps in coverage, and I see it all the time. And so I like to problem solve. But there is such a thing as being overinsured too. I truly believe, and not all agents would agree with me, but you can be overinsured and have stuff that you don't need that really doesn't apply to you that's costing you. So I
Sure.
really look at the whole picture and look for both gaps and overages, so we can try to find a customized plan that really fits for exactly what you do and how you operate.
What are some like kind of essential coverages you would think most local business owners would need, or is it that easy to kind of lump into a bucket?
There are a couple of buckets I think that every business should have, for the most part, and that would be general liability and professional liability, or errors and omissions insurance, same thing. But most businesses that I work with also have property. They have business property. They have equipment. They have inventory. They have, you know, if they're a restaurant, they're going to have plates and chairs and furniture and utensils and equipment. So a lot of that piece of it, the business property coverage, is important to make sure they have the proper amount. But I definitely would say, first and foremost, general liability. There's very few instances where general liability would not be applicable to a business, but 99% of the time it's important to have, because there are some very significant coverages that it can cover for any type of business. So yeah, I would say that. Obviously, if you have an auto or van or anything you use for the business, having business auto insurance, it's going to protect you. I think one of the biggest faults that I hear quite a bit, people assume, well, I've got it listed on my personal auto.
Oh, I
But
see.
unfortunately, the problem with that is if you use it for the business and get into an accident, you're at fault, it will most likely be denied because it was being used for business use, not personal use. And most carriers, you can't use a vehicle for business use and have it personal insured. So
Okay. Yeah, that's super interesting. And I feel like some of the stuff you were talking to me about was some of the like the internet
mhm.
stuff. Like what happens as, so many local business owners, they have to use the internet for like POS systems, for payment, for e-commerce. So when they're thinking about that, what does insurance cover them in that kind of part of the business?
Yes, so that's, you're referring to cyber liability
Mhm.
protection, and the different carriers title it a little differently, but really cyber is the key word there. And it covers so many different things, and I can't speak, every carrier has a little bit difference on their exclusions and inclusions for that coverage, but in a nutshell, it really covers you for any data breach that might occur. If your equipment, your computers are stolen and there is customer information on those computers, if you have a breach of any type on any of your equipment that has any personal information for you or your customers. And it really doesn't just cover the liability of that to protect you against, or if it really escalates, to hire an attorney, but it also covers you for replacing the equipment or putting stronger security measures in place. That there's a cost to that.
Yeah.
It would cover, you could even use that money for up to whatever limit you have. If your customers are upset and they feel like they've been compromised, you could buy identity theft protection for them for a year or 2 years or 5 years, whatever you want to do, and use that money towards protecting them as a way to replenish your reputation after what happened. Probably I people say that. So
Yeah.
there's quite a wide range of what you can use the money for, but it really covers a lot of pieces from cyber perspective.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. I just had never even heard of that. And I was like pretty new to business ownership. So it was just like mind blowing to me. I'm like, what? You can get insurance for that? Like I just had no idea. Um, so general liability, like potential like cyber based insurance. What else do you have any specific clients who maybe are like massage therapists or like you mentioned before we went live, like contractors, like what other things are people thinking about as they're making decisions about insurance?
Yes, contractors is a really unique industry because the work that you do, is very specific as a contractor, but then you might subcontract other work out that you don't specifically do it yourself or your team does themselves. And so you have to make sure that your policy covers the work you do and the work you subcontract out. And you also have to make sure that you are getting proof of insurance from those subcontractors so they are covered if they make a mistake and it doesn't come back to you. So there's a lot of layers to that I like to talk to contractors about. Inventory is another one, and not so much inventory for sales necessarily, although that could very well be the case, but just tools. A lot of my contractors know they have tools, they have maybe an idea of what their value is, but if I ask for an itemized list, they may not have that. And we just implemented a new perk for being a client, and it's no cost. We will go and inventory all of their tools and equipment. And then we'll just update it once a year at their annual policy review. We do a quick review to make sure everything's good to go and nothing has changed. And we keep it on hand. So if there was ever a claim, I literally just email it right to the adjuster and we're good to go. So that's a brand new perk that we just added this month.
Yeah. Yeah. I even think someone like me, like my tool, like is this iMac that I'm on right now. So making sure that is covered in case that, I don't know, anything were to happen to it. Like that's it's how I operate every single day. Like kind of need that, you know?
So true. I would say if I could add one other thing that I often ask about, and I'm starting to see more and more people getting it or have it when I talk to them. But there was quite a time where EPLI, which is employers liability, was not part of a package or not typically part of a business policy. But even if you have one part-time employee, you really should have it. And really what it does, why it's so important, even if you are interviewing and you don't end up hiring them, we can't stop somebody from coming back and saying to the business owner, well, you didn't hire me because I am female or because of this or because of that or whatever the situation might be. And it may not even be validated, but now if they take action, you're forced to hire an attorney. Even if they've never employed them. And I have seen that happen. And so EPLI coverage will go from the interview process through employment, through termination. So it covers everything in between. It covers harassment, it covers wrongful demotions or terminations, everything in that whole gamut of the hiring and recruiting process. And we're seeing a lot more claims come from that. So EPLI is extremely important with employment. If you have at least one employee, you really, really should have EPLI. It really protects you.
That is so interesting. Yep, never thought of that. I'm a full-time employee. So definitely adding that to my list of things to look at and think about. So we got employees, cyber, anything else you feel like as local business owners are either getting their own property or, maybe they're hosting events, which I feel like that is a big thing. And kind of the local market is like collaborations and like getting out there with product and service is like, how should they think about that?
I think part of that too, which most packages nowadays, which most carriers have this, but you want to make sure that you've got completed operations coverage and personal injury in advertising coverage. Because if somebody slanders you all over Facebook, for example, and you truly feel that it has tarnished your reputation and you're starting to lose clients or people have canceled on you or you feel it has negatively affected your business and your income, there's coverage for that to help you repair that reputation and build that back up, that brand back up. And so that is, and with social media today, it's so prevalent. It happens all the time. And most people don't even realize they have that coverage. but I always write it on there because it can easily happen, easily.
I
So I
can.
definitely always just include that. I think it's, and it doesn't cost, it's so little, it's maybe, a tiny little piece of the premium, but it really is beneficial, especially with social media and digital world today that we're in.
Yeah, things can get out really quickly if someone has an opinion about you.
That's
Like,
so true.
okay. Yeah. Okay. That's super interesting. I remember thinking when I was doing pop-up yoga, just getting started there, in like 2014, I was really thinking about like the liability, like what if the speaker, like the things fall on people and someone wants to sue me? Like, I just like someone brought it up at one point. I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. People do get angry. People like to sue. Like, so I think what you said, like in the beginning, is just assessing the risk, right? Like you're looking through what could happen. Like it's very not like me to even want to do this. And you're a pretty like happy-go-lucky kind of gal too, to like think of all the negative things that could happen is not natural for someone like me personally. And so, but I think it's so important just to like at least put it all on the table. Like things don't always go as planned. There are circumstances that will arise. So how would you like to best prepare for them in advance? If you, and I think that's where you come in.
So true. And I do ask a lot of questions of a business owner up front when I first connect with them if they want a proposal. The more I understand about how they operate and everything they do and everything they don't do, the better job that I can do putting the right package together for them that hits all of those targets.
Yeah.
And it does happen occasionally where they forget to tell me about something they do a little bit on the side or whatever it might be. But I have to be thorough or I could miss something. And so I usually tell my business clients up front, give me just a little time. This is my list. Bear with me. Let's get through this. And then I can get to work and make sure it's right.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love it. This is
Yeah.
so helpful from like an introductory, but you like definitely dove into some areas that I know some people are curious about, and I was definitely curious about too. Do you have anything else you feel like story or an example that can leave part on other people?
Yeah, so I did have, it's kind of ironic that we're talking about cyber. I did have a client that I really encouraged to get cyber liability, and he first turned me down. We issued the policy without it. And I said, look, you can add anything you want throughout the term, but please consider it. And I had him sign something that said I offered it. He chose not to get it because I also have to protect myself.
Yeah.
I'm doing my job. About 6 months later, I had reached out to him to I can't remember why, but I was reaching out to him for something to follow up on something. And I said, hey, I'm just gonna ask you again. What do you think about that cyber? And he was like, oh, fine, just do it. I mean, it's $80 a year to add it.
Okay. Right? Sure.
So he's like, okay, fine, do it. So I had him do it. And it wasn't even a week later, he called me and he's like, you know that coverage you made me add? And I said, well, I didn't make you add it.
Strongly
encouraged. I recommended it. And he said, well, guess what? I had a computer stolen. And I thought, oh my gosh, I am so glad. I said, and I won't say his name, I'll keep it private. I said, I am so glad that I really am glad that you took it because we will cover it now. We're going to cover everything.
Yep.
And he was so happy.
Yeah. Oh, that's when you probably hear the best stories is when like the crappiest things happen to people. They're like, Carla, thank you. Like, even though I'm in a really bad situation right now, like, thank you for making it less bad,
Yes. And I have had this happen where not just personal, but commercial customer will call me and say, hey, do I have coverage for this? And I'll look it up and say, you know what? No. And I know we talked about it and you decided to wait. And unfortunately, you don't have that coverage. And it just kills me to have to tell people that.
Yeah.
So it's just as much me making sure that I'm doing my job as making sure they're protected because I don't want to tell people no. I'd rather tell them yes.
That would be hard. Like
yes, it's hard.
Yeah.
It kills me, but it's my job is to say that as few times as possible, right? Yep. I can't force people, but I could educate and let them make the decision.
Absolutely. This is so amazing. So people are like, okay, my wheels are turning. Can they just like reach out and connect with you just to like explore a conversation?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I usually encourage people, even if they're not necessarily wanting a quote, but they just have questions or want to learn, to reach out. You can email me, call me, text me. Our office here is right off of 86th and Hickman, across from Natural Grocers, in the two-story white brick building. So we're kind of centralized there on the kind of the west side. Our office number can also be text, but most people have my cell as well. So
have yourself. What's your website for people if they want to just start there?
Yes, it's very simple. It's quotewithrendall.com.
I love that. I saw that in your submission. I was
Well,
like, that is so straightforward. Quote with
I
Rendall.
should have done insurewithrendall.com. Had I thought about that after I already bought it.
I mean, you could get 2 domains. Just kidding.
Right? I could.
You could. Oh, this was so helpful. Thank you for taking the time of your day to educate us and let us know why insurance matters, why it's important. This was super helpful.
Wonderful. I'm glad. Thank you so much for letting me come on and do this.
Yes, of course.